Show them what you can do. Please show them what you can do. You make this parade a mere charade if you're marching just for fun. Our troops must feel your thanks for real before the marching is done. They know side by side you can match their stride to the drum beat and the brass, but they're not impressed with you unless you can match their stride in class. This may not sound too diplomatic, but I cannot be more emphatic as I tell you, it's problematic when you do less than your best, especially when it's because you put your...
Good afternoon. Welcome to Wave Your Grades on KUAW.org, the academic patriotism program that is dedicated to veterans and serious secondary scholars. I am your announcer, DeQuay Wilson. Before I turn it over to our host, Carl Boyd, I'm going to give the mic to Mr. George Walker so he can tell us how you can catch us online and on air.
Well, good afternoon, Kansas City. This is Louis George Walker with the Black Family Technology Awareness Association and KUAW Radio. And if you're listening to us right now, you may be listening on Facebook or you may be listening on YouTube. You can also pick us up on TuneIn, on Get Me Radio, Online Radio Box, and if you have a smart speaker, be sure and tell it to play KUAW. So check us out. We're on the web. Go on Google and just type in KUAW Radio.
Now, Brother Louis George Walker, founder of KUAW, which stands for Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom. Brother Walker, you have given us that introduction of access. What is our relationship with KOJH? Please.
And that is right. We do have a new connection that we're going out over the air right now with the Kansas City's oldest jazz house, the Mutual Musicians Foundation, and KOJH Radio. So you can pick us up on 100.5 if you're in the area. KOJH, Kansas City's oldest jazz house.
Not far from 18th and Vines. And thank you very much, Louis George Walker. My name is Carl Boyd. I am a civilian host, but we dedicate our program to those who have served, those who are serving, and to serious American students striving for excellence in honor of our troops. And today, we are very honored to have as our very special guest, Pastor Thomas Shelton. And as I welcome you, if there's any particular introduction you want to make, I have a number of topics that pertain to the work that you have done and continue to do. Welcome, Pastor Thomas Shelton.
Well, just thank you, Mr. Boyd. It's an honor and a privilege to get that phone call from you and be asked again, because I think we did this last year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Be asked again because there's so many other people that you could have called, but we thank you for that blessing for calling us.
Thank you so very much. And your church is?
The Lighthouse Missionary Baptist Church.
Yes, indeed. Pastor Shelton, it is absolutely amazing that there are so many things that we have in common as it relates to education, and most particularly 7th and 8th grade, and in your case 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, as well as other students, but also in terms of the greater Kansas City community. I was mentioning before we came on air having the opportunity with Impact Development in 1980 to be a part of the Santa Fe District, which became the Santa Fe Historic District. Not only that, today there are so many things going on that literally, and you hear hosts of programs say so often, I don't know where to start. But that's almost the case now because there are so many things going on. So in as much as, quote, I don't know where to start, unquote, I will let you guide me. There are a number of things in which you are involved today. What is one in particular that is of the utmost import in today's world, or two or three things?
I'm glad you didn't limit it to just one thing. My kids say, Dad's never going to retire.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Now, was that heard on air? We had,
No,
okay.
hopefully not.
Thank you very, very much. Please go right ahead. By the way, in as much as it didn't go on the air, let me tell our listeners what happened. There was some sound that I thought might have distorted us, but our producer and engineer, announcer, and co-host, DeQuay Wilson, assures me that we're okay. So please continue. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that the most important thing for me that I'm involved in is, first of all, my church. And,
Yes, sir.
And the Christian community.
Yes, sir.
I just think that it's so important. I think that everyone needs a religious basis. I think it all starts from there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I've been involved in so much stuff that
Yes, indeed.
sometimes I can't even keep track of it. But to just briefly let you know, I'm retired Air Force Reserve for 21 years.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long. Yes, sir.
21 years. I was a police officer for 13 years, Kansas City, Missouri police officer for 13 years.
Yes.
I was an educator for almost 30 years, because after I retired, I went back and did some stuff.
My Lord.
Retired.
Okay. Okay.
And when I finally stopped working,
Yes.
then I had always wanted to do some stuff in the community. I just felt like that I had enough time, enough health and everything that
Yes.
I could do some stuff in the community. And I had made some contacts as a police officer and as an educator and everything with various organizations around the city. So I got involved with, I'm still involved with Concerned Clergy of Kansas City.
Yes.
Pastor Michael Brooks is president.
Yes.
Cassandra Wainwright is the one that talked me into
Oh,
it.
believe me, Cassandra Wainwright has had some influence on all of us.
Yes, sir. So then through that, I became involved this last year in KC 360, which is headed,
Oh, that's right.
which is headed by KC Common Good with Darren Faulkner.
Yes, sir.
Darren Faulkner being the director of KC 360. I said all that to say this, that just because you reach a certain age don't mean you're useless.
Thank
That
you.
You can still get out and do what you
Absolutely.
can do. And we need people with experience, various experiences out there, helping our community to get better. The only way, and I said this at a meeting earlier this spring, where the only way our communities are going to get better is that we help to make them better.
Yes, sir.
It won't be an army come from the outside.
My Lord, that's
that
so important.
invades and makes us better. We have to do something. We have to make up our mind that we're going to do right. We're going to take care of our property. We're going to do all that.
Yes, sir.
We're going to teach our kids that it's all right to go to work. Everybody don't have to go to college, but everybody
right.
don't have to go to work.
That's
somewhere.
right. Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
these are the things that I've been fortunate enough to do and get involved in. Met some wonderful people
Yes.
all around the city, various
Absolutely.
organizations. So I'm just glad to be one
Yes.
of all these other people that are out doing their thing.
And let me say to you that I thank you so much for starting in exactly the right place when you talked about your responsibility as a pastor. I did not zoom in yesterday to Shepherds Helping Shepherds with Reverend Bob Hill, but certainly follow Pastor Michael Brooks, Pastor Cassandra Wainwright, Concerned Clergy here in Kansas City, Missouri, and do something for me. I've had the occasion to answer this question in my way, but first I wonder whether or not you've gotten this question, and how do you respond to, man, the churches, they just aren't doing anything. We need the churches to step up. How do you respond to that?
Well, you're right. First of all, I've heard that
Yes, sir.
numerous times.
Yes, sir.
But we need to remember a couple of things. One, the church is made up of people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
A lot of times when you say the church not doing something,
Come on.
a lot of folks think they're referring to the pastor, but the pastor is busy out there doing a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
other things.
Absolutely.
So if something's going to get done, it's going to take the sheep. My pastor, the late great Reverend Faye White Jr.
Yes.
Okay, Faye used to tell us all the time that sheep gather sheep. Okay,
Yes.
and so if something's going to be done in the community, pastors and leaders have to take a leadership position in that, which means that you have to get out there and you have to be willing to sacrifice of self
Yes,
to
sir.
get stuff done. It may not be convenient for me to have to go to all these different meetings, but I show up at the meetings because you never know who's there.
Yes, sir.
Who needs that word that God has given you to help them and help somebody else.
Without a doubt. Was Reverend White's church on Brooklyn?
Yes, sir. 38 Brooklyn.
Now, you and I know, and we can inform those who were not fortunate enough to meet him, that if you want to talk about a relevant ministry, if you want to talk about somebody who knew what was going on in the community, the impacted community, and you say that you had the opportunity to be to work with that family, as it were, that's authenticity to the core. The other thing is, and I said that I've had the occasion to respond to that business of, the churches aren't doing anything. Pastor Sheldon, what do you think the answer to this question is when I say to them, what church do you attend? and I don't mean to be sarcastic. There very well may be some people who are listening who are not in attendance at a church. But if we were familiar with Matthew 22 and 28, when you hear, go ye, it didn't say stay behind the pulpit. And Pastor Thomas Shelton goes ye in a number of ways, but most importantly, a devout Christian who is sent. This is not some stuff you're making up. So as we talk about these different things, I have an interest in you because of my prejudice. 1964, I started at south side of Chicago, 7th and 8th grade science. So let me take you back there. We're going to come on up to now. Tell us a little bit about your school experiences, and was it always at a public school?
Yeah, I grew up here in Kansas City.
Yes.
Always attended public schools.
Yes, sir.
I would say that people would think that you become a teacher, you become an administrator, coach, that you had to be the AB student
Yes,
in
sir.
school. I wasn't necessarily an AB student.
Thank you. Me either.
right?
Me either.
I probably did just enough so my mom and them wouldn't get mad at me. And I think a lot of people are like that. I think
You
a lot
know
of
what?
kids are like that.
Thank you for saying that, because that reminds me of the fact that there was a time when there was a relationship between the school and the home. So your mother knew exactly what was going on at school. Please go ahead.
So I did, but I ran into a teacher when I was in the ninth grade, a couple of teachers when I was in the ninth grade, who inspired me in his class, in my civics class. Just he had been a lawyer, and he left being a lawyer to come and teach, and he was really honest with us about his life and about and this was a white guy.
Yes.
And we were at Southeast, and we were there was less than 100 blacks in the school.
Oh, is that right?
My
Okay.
freshman year.
Wow.
And he was teaching us. I think we had the largest class of African Americans at that time. And he was teaching. He was quite honest. He was very, very honest, and I liked that. And I developed a relationship with him. Unfortunately, the next year at Christmas, he passed away from a heart attack.
Okay.
And then I had another teacher my sophomore year who came in and taught us world history. Again, a white male taught us.
Interesting.
Taught us world history, and I was always interested in geography, world history, and all that. And he almost tutored me and took me down that journey of what all this would
Is that
entail.
right?
He's the one that really encouraged me to fill that first application out to go to college.
Wow.
Because nobody in my family had been to college. And he told me, he said, Tom, you can do this. And from that point on, it stuck with me.
I'll tell you one thing that's very interesting about that. And by the way, DeQuay Wilson, our producer, engineer, announcer, co-host, please come right in, because I was looking at Pastor Shelton, so I might not have.
I'm listening at this point, but if I have something to say, I will definitely join in.
Please do, because she has some very profound comments for every Saturday that we do the program. So I want to make sure that I'm hearing from her. But let me tell you what was interesting about what you just said when you were talking about this white gentleman who was teaching history, who was teaching geography, to, at that point at least, the largest class of blacks. But today, one of the things that we are particularly concerned about is the teaching, the proper teaching of black history. And as a matter of fact, DeQuay, it was last week that I was saying I'm less interested in black history than facts history, because if you teach facts history, you can't avoid black history. And as far as that was concerned, this experience that you had with this particular gentleman, who happened to be a white male, I suspect he did not hold back from teaching you what you needed to know.
Both of them were quite honest. Just told us. I mean, because remember that this was 1966 to 1970. So
Wow.
it was in the middle of when Kansas City had its race riot in 68. Okay? And these gentlemen are here teaching us honestly what history was. Okay? Now, we didn't have black history in the school at that time. It wasn't until my
Yes.
senior year
Yes.
that the district hired a black lady, Donna, forgot her last name now, but she came from Chicago.
Oh, is that right?
Okay, yeah. And
Okay.
she came in.
Wow.
And, ooh, she was dynamite. You talk about somebody that did not play. We was in class.
Yes, sir.
And you was mesmerized by the amount of information that she gave us.
That is so good.
That we really did not know. We learned so much. And that class was just a one semester class.
Man, I wish at some point perhaps that name will come back to you, because, as I say, I started teaching in Chicago in '64. If that was in '66, it might be somebody I've heard of from Chicago.
But she taught us. All of these people were influences on my life, in addition to my mom and dad and
Absolutely.
other people in the community.
When you say positive influences, are you suggesting that might have been when you started considering a career in teaching necessarily, or
Yeah,
just?
yeah, that's
okay.
exactly it.
Okay. Wow.
You're 14, 15 years old, and you realize this high school thing gonna be over in a couple of years.
Yes.
So I got to do something, right? I got to figure out what I'm gonna do. My friends were talking about going to college. For me, it wasn't something that we talked about at home, because neither one of my parents went to college. I didn't know anybody in my immediate family who had gone to college. And so I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to take those steps, okay? But to show you how the Lord worked, how the Lord put things in place, there was a statement made by one of the administrators at our school that blacks shouldn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that personally.
Did you say administrator?
One of the administration,
Yes, sir.
whether they were a counselor or administrator, whatever, they were in the administration.
Yes.
And I took that personal.
Absolutely.
I was bound
Absolutely.
and determined that I was going to go and I was going to get this degree and I was going to come back and teach and I was going
Okay.
to show this person that this was possible. And so these same people, all these groups, there was a group of people who at one time or other poured into me, various teachers poured into me, black, white, Hispanic, poured into me
Yes, sir.
about what it is that was possible. And that's what motivated me to go to school and get that BA degree. And then I went into ministry, and
Oh.
I had I was at Western Bible College, and Carl Johnson, Pastor Johnson's son from Zion Grove.
Yes, sir.
Okay, his son was teaching over there,
Okay.
and he pulled me to the side and encouraged me to go to seminary. Now, I hadn't even thought about seminary.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's interesting.
and
That's
he
interesting.
got me into Central Baptist Theological Seminary, where I got my master's, my first master's.
Now, we had a brief conversation, Sister DeQuay Wilson, before we came on, so you know that this gentleman has a range of experiences and wide knowledge in a number of things. Let me explore this before I want to talk to you about some other things in which you have been engaged. So I'll ask this one question about education right now. I am a romantic idealist. My wife says, and one of my pastors, I have the gift of faith. And things that I believe from then versus now, as it relates to education. When you think back about your experiences as an educator and look at the landscape 2023, are there differences? And if there are, what are some things we should be doing today where education is concerned?
That's a good question. That's an excellent question.
Thank you.
The question is, will the folk that need to hear it?
Come on. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
To answer your question, that a lot of things that we did that are considered old school, memorization,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where you
Phonics.
that rote memory, phonics, learning how to read, putting people on different reading levels because they're not at that same level.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and help them to move up to that level. These are types of things that we did old school
Yes, sir.
that need to be emphasized back
Wow.
because they were successful. They worked.
That is
Okay.
so important.
You had mentioned earlier about teaching history because that's what I do. Teaching it honestly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's just open the book.
Come
let's
on.
teach it what it is.
Thank you.
Okay? Let's quit trying to water it down because it's going to satisfy this group or satisfy.
That
Just
is-
tell the truth. Let it fall where it falls.
Yes.
And people will make determination because the bad thing about lying to folks, okay, when they find out.
Yes, sir.
Now.
Yes, sir.
You really got an issue.
I was 12 years old when I met Mrs. Arnold, and Mrs. Arnold taught Sunday school at Apostolic Faith Church on 38th and Indiana in Chicago, Illinois, and this was in 1954. And in a Sunday school class, she gave us this illustration. This is the truth, and this is something other than a truth. This is a lie. The lie leans and needs another lie to hold it up. And it leans and it needs another lie to hold it up. And it leans. This is the truth. Nothing you can do about that. That's it. Forever. So I don't care what Governor DeSantis says in the state of Florida. I don't care what somebody else says about how you manipulate subject matter. If it is the truth, we'll stand with that. So that is absolutely.
And it's going to come out. It's going to
And
come
it
out.
will come out.
Because they've tried this before. Groups have tried this before. And today, we're still hearing about the truth.
Yes, that's exactly
Okay?
right.
And now you have worldwide media. And so all the social medias and all this stuff, you get tons and tons of this information.
Right.
You may not go to college. You may not have African American history in your school. But that doesn't mean you can't learn it because it's there on the internet.
Now, in as much as we feel that it is important to pay tribute to those who have served and those who are serving, will you please share with us something about your military career? I didn't realize it was 21 years.
Yes, sir. I was. You know how you grew up broke?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ask me again. I do.
I wanted to go to college, and I was making that plan, and then the August before my senior year, my mother passed away.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And I finished my senior year.
Wow.
I filled out the application to go to school, and I got accepted into
Oh.
Rockhurst and UMKC, but I had that type of money.
Thank you.
And so I ended up going in the Air Force, okay?
Okay.
And once I got in, because my plans all along had been to graduate from high school, go to college, get my degree, and go in the Air Force.
Okay.
Well, it just so happened the Lord reversed that. So I
Yes.
graduated from high school, I went into the Air Force, and I was fortunate enough to go to a place, to Minot, North Dakota,
Mm.
5th Bomb Wing, SAC,
Yes, sir.
Strategic Air Command.
Yes, sir.
And I worked with a wonderful team of people up there that helped me to grow as a person. And I learned so much about maturing. Sometimes we come out of high school at 17, 18 years old, and we're not as mature as we ought to be, or that we're going to be later on. And that period of time, on that active duty period of time,
Yes.
gave me enough time to mature. And then I transferred to the reserves. And I said, oh, this is great. I can do this for
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
the remainder of my time. And so that's what I did. And the other thing is that being in the reserve, they sent me all over the world. I mean,
Wow.
I've been to Germany,
Yes, sir.
Italy, France. I've been to Guam. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to Okinawa. All these different places
Yes.
that you only read about.
Exactly.
A kid from Kansas City, Missouri, a poor kid from Kansas City, Missouri, living in the inner city. I read all the books.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I knew the geography and everything. I knew about the culture. I just had never experienced
Thank you.
until I got an opportunity to go there. And what that did was it instilled in my kids a desire to travel.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
And that's what we have to do. We have to make our kids, we have to help our kids to understand that Kansas City is not all there is.
Yes, sir.
There's an entire world out
Come
there
on.
that you can explore and
Yes.
that you can see. And I'm glad to see more and more of our young people getting out and interacting in the world.
I have a question to ask you about that military experience. Sister Takwe, how are we doing on time?
Well, we are at the halfway point. I can go ahead and do our announcement now if you
Okay.
like, and let the conversation commence after.
Thank you.
So it is time to remind our 7th and 8th grade students that you can win a monetary award from our sponsoring organization, Stutes for Boots. Your essay title will be Heroes You Know You Didn't Know Were Heroes. Your content will identify a veteran at your school who can be absolutely anyone. If your essay is chosen and submitted by an adult who gives you permission to read it on this Wave Your Grades program, you will be awarded a monetary prize. Please send entry or inquiry to stootsforboots@gmail.com. That is STOOTSFORBOOTS@gmail.com. Again, stootsforboots@gmail.com. Now back to our host, Carl Boyd.
Thank you so very much, Takwe Wilson. We have the pleasure of being with Pastor Thomas Shelton, a veteran indeed, an educator, community activist, and more. As I said, there are so many topics, and I'm trying to move the conversation along, but for each topic, I do have a subsequent question. And let me tell you what Takwe and I have experienced with our very special guests. Oftentimes, they help us and young people who may be listening to understand the advantages of serving time with the military. If they don't mention anything else, they will often talk about the benefits to education. But what I want to ask Pastor Thomas Shelton, October 28th, 2023, is how you see America on the world stage today with the number of things we are confronting, and how indeed that might encourage or do something else young people as it relates to joining the military.
Okay, let me let me go back because that's a complex question.
Yes,
just
sir.
had. First of all, the military, one of the benefits about the military when I was in was that it helped pay for my college.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and for at that time, you have to remember that I went into service during the Vietnam War era. Okay,
I was 4F
and so a lot of folk got their degrees because they went into the military, and the military helped pay for that.
Yes, sir.
The United States, on the world view, United States probably has, when you look at the military, no, let me qualify that. Let me go back for a second. You have to remember that the military is designed and prepared to fight a war.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so whenever you go in the military, you go in with that mindset that we could be in a war.
Yes, indeed.
And that you can't get around that. That's what you're being trained for every day.
Yes.
That's, you hope and pray that you don't have to go to war, but that's what it is.
And you went in before we were through with
Right,
Vietnam.
right.
We was
It
engaged.
was toward the middle, toward the end when I went in, and then we had several other minor skirmishes.
Yes, sir.
You know, while I was in the last year, my last year, 91 to 92, we had the first Desert Storm. Mm-hmm. And I was coaching football at Northeast at the time, and some of my kids asked me, Coach, you going to have to go? And I said, well, I don't know yet, because at that time, remember, I'm in the Air Force Reserve.
Yes, sir.
They're not calling up a whole lot of folk like they did in the Army and
Okay.
Marines. I said, I don't know, but if I do get caught up, I'm confident enough to know that I've been trained to do my job.
Yes, sir.
And that for 19 years, I've been collecting money from the Air Force.
Yes.
And now it's time to go and do your job. And so I said, I'm ready to go do that. And
Wow.
That's what I'm called.
That's a beautiful
Fortunately,
attitude.
I wasn't called. Some people volunteered to go.
Yes, sir.
Because remember, it was also somewhat of a recession at the time in 91, 92.
Mm-hmm.
And so some guys volunteered to go active duty because they could get paid full
Yes,
time.
indeed.
They had lost their jobs, they could get paid full time. So I had no problem with that. The United States, we have to remember, the United States probably has the most powerful army in the world,
Okay.
bar none. We may not have as many people as the Chinese have,
Without a doubt.
but we have technology and we have industrialization that can gear up, and that's what happened during World War II.
Yes, indeed.
Just geared up so quickly
Absolutely.
to get into a war mode. Now, and we probably train better than anybody else, because trust me, training is all you do.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
when
This
you're
is
in the
serious.
military,
Yes, indeed.
You training for this scenario, that scenario, so that when you're in a combat situation, that's exactly your training kicks in. It's like sports. Okay?
Yes.
A lot of kids into basketball, into baseball, stuff like that. The reason why you spend more hours practicing than you do playing the game,
Absolutely.
so that your body becomes second nature to the things that have to be done.
Muscle memory, just
Muscle memory.
boom.
That's it.
Yes.
And that's the same thing you do in the military.
Yes, sir.
It's You,
Yes, sir.
it kicks in, and you do what you have to do. The United States had, because it is probably one of the leaders economically and militarily, it has a position of leadership in the world. But with leadership comes tremendous responsibility.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
you cannot lead people falsely, okay? You've got to be honest with folk. I don't want to get into a lot of politics and everything, but if the leadership that's being elected is not representing the people,
Yes, sir.
okay,
Yes, sir.
then that leadership is not helping your country.
And it becomes weak.
It becomes weak.
And not only that, one of the other things you mentioned was multimedia, social media. So the things that play out now play out on the world stage,
world stage.
whether we want it to or not.
And that's not such a bad thing, because what social media has done was it's brought in information from different countries that when we only had a couple of avenues
Yes.
of media, you got a prejudicial
Nope.
viewpoint of it.
Absolutely.
Now you get to hear it from their point of view.
Absolutely.
That when you take, for instance, the concept of the continent of Africa. Okay.
Yes.
The idea is the continent of Africa was one giant jungle with black folks running around naked and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But the reality is they have a lot of major cities there, a lot of industry, a lot of cultural stuff that's going on there.
Absolutely.
So now you can go and directly contact social media in Africa or media in Africa and actually see what's going on all around the world.
And you make me mindful of the fact that, again, Sister DeQuay, that we have the honor of Pastor Thomas Shelton, and there is a spiritual aspect to 100% of the engagements we encounter in the time that we're living in. So that your capacity as pastor is 24/7. 366 days a year. This is ongoing. And there was a suggestion that during the pandemic that there was a reduction in participation at local churches and those kinds of things. But how do you as a pastor negotiate the number of confrontations that this society presents you on an ongoing basis?
You have to constantly remind yourself that this world has been affected by sin.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
no matter what the situation is, that factor of sin is always going to be there.
Okay.
Okay. So when folk want to argue, you have to remember. And you have to remind yourself, and I'm telling you as a pastor, as a human, sometimes it's hard for you to remember this, that God's still in charge. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Because
sir.
the human in you,
Yes, sir.
okay, the flesh in you wants to come out and say something,
Yes, sir.
you know.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
The flesh says, you need to say that.
Yeah.
It's inappropriate. So I think, very honestly, the older I get, the more patient I get,
That's good.
and I don't get as excited about statements that people make.
Okay. Okay.
During the pandemic, a lot of churches, a lot of folks stopped coming to
Yes.
well, we were mandated not to go.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
got together. But here's the deal. What that gave us an opportunity to see was what folks really love the Lord. Okay?
Yes.
A lot of folks were showing up in church. Now, I know there's some church folk out there and some pastors, but I'm going to say this.
Yes, sir.
And y'all can talk to me about it later, but I'm going to say it. Y'all know good and well that some of them folks that was occupying seats in your church wasn't really in the church.
Okay. Good
Okay?
point. Yes, sir.
The folks that was really in the church
Yes, sir.
showed up at the Zoom meeting that you had.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Yes.
in the case of Lighthouse, they was telling me, Pastor, when we gonna go back to this service?
Absolutely.
And I'm
Absolutely.
concerned about their health, and they saying, I'm tired of this. I want to go back to in service. And so, as the shots and stuff became available, we started back, and we didn't lose anybody from the COVID situation. The folks that was going there before COVID are the same folks that's still there now.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
I think that what God did is like He did with Gideon.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Come on.
He said, "You got 2 minutes." I said, "I want to know who truly is
Yes.
mine."
This percentage,
Okay.
this percentage, this.
So when COVID comes down,
Yes, sir.
boom, all of a sudden,
Yes.
then you begin to see, okay, this is who God wants us to work with.
And one of the things that is so important, and I am so pleased to have Pastor Thomas Shelton on about, is the fact that once again, where there are those who might be cynical, who might be reluctant, who might be negative, when you look at Sankofa and you see a Reverend Esther Holzendorf, and you see the pastor Cassandra Wainwright, and when you look at 360 and you see Pastor Darren Faulkner, and you see Pastor Michael Brooks, and you see much of the leadership for things that we are engaged in right now comes from the church. And I appreciate, as a matter of fact, we did an interview for KCPBS with Reverend Sam Mann, and have the utmost respect for Reverend Bob Hill and a number of other people who happen to not to be black. But black leadership in our churches, in our faith community, is strong, and unlike some people fear, it's getting stronger. Mm-hmm. One reason might indeed be out of necessity, because if we haven't learned to turn to God now, I'm not sure when it will happen or what must take place. But I am prejudiced, obviously, and proud. Reverend James A. Terrence Jr. at Friendship Baptist Church, a congregation of Jesus Christ as Wanda's and my pastor, and we have seen a church that continues, that goes on. But if you hear something called the Urban Summit, you're talking about Bishop James Tyndall, whose tenure is just, even while Keith Thomas has that leadership. But if we look back at leadership on matters of civil rights in Kansas City, Missouri, we are pretty much looking at Reverend somebody. So that is indeed a blessing. And looking at time,
we still have a few minutes.
I have mentioned that there are a few things that I wanted you to help us with.
Can I say something?
Please. I'm sorry. I went on and on.
Traditionally, the black church has taken leadership, and the reason for that is because we were segregated, and our leaders came from our church and from our schools and everything. Today, because of integration, because our kids are out there, they're going to school with a variety of different people, they don't look at the pastor as being that leader, and that's part of the problem why a lot of them don't come to church.
Yes, sir.
Because they got so many other things they could do. So we always need to remember that traditionally, historically, that our leadership came from our church, because we didn't have the community centers, we didn't have the golf courses and stuff that we could go to on Sunday morning.
And one of the good things about pastoral leadership and faith leadership in the black community, it was one institution that did not have to answer to the political and capitalistic leaders.
Right.
Because you could be self-determining at your church. And I remember with a great degree of satisfaction how important that was to Pastor Earl Abel when he was the pastor at Palestine, that self-determination. But now, as we have this profound opportunity, this honor to hear from you, there are some things that are going on in our community, and if Pastor Thomas Shelton had to not necessarily list them in order of their importance, because all of them are 100% important, but in working with 360 and other activists, what are some of the kinds of things that our homes, our parents, our community need to engage? Formal membership in some of these organizations, but for some that might not be possible. What are some things we need to be doing?
First of all, I believe everybody can do something. God has blessed everybody with some talent. So take that talent, because God didn't give you that talent to make $1 million off of. He gave you that talent to uplift His kingdom.
Thank you.
We need to constantly remember that.
Thank you.
As we're out there. And our problem, I think in many cases, is that what happens is that we think that our talent is not as good as somebody else's talent. Mm-hmm. When I go to these meetings, I do not have to be the one up front, the one standing up front, the one in charge. I can sit back in the back and
Yes,
and
sir.
they'll tell you, Pastor Sheldon don't say a whole lot.
Right.
But when the Lord moved me
I know
to
that's
say
right.
something, then
It's
I go
clear.
ahead and say it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So now they've learned to look at me and say, hey, he ain't gonna say a whole lot, but you know,
If-
when
if he
that
has a
moment,
task.
let's listen to what he has to say, and so everybody should be like that.
Ask Sister DeQuay Wilson how she views precisely what you just said.
Sister Wilson.
You're describing me. Oftentimes I sit here, I say very little. But if I feel the need to say something, it's something that probably needs to be heard. One of the things that keeps crossing my mind, it really has nothing to do with the conversation that you guys are having today. But you think about what's going on in Maine, and you think about the reaction from the Speaker of the House. And, you know, and I guess it does kind of touch on what we're
Yes,
talking about.
please.
We are talking from a religious perspective or a spiritual perspective. And what was said was basically hopes and prayers. And all that keeps coming to my mind is, yes, that's fine, but faith without works is dead. You can hope and you can pray all you want to, but if you are
Thank
not taking the
you.
steps, God will meet you. He's not going to do it all for you. So, and that's just kind of what I'm thinking. But, and that goes the same in our community. We hope for our
Thank
future,
you.
we pray for our children, but what is all of that if we're not doing our part to contribute to their well-being? So, with that said,
let
go
me
ahead.
piggyback a little bit on what you just said, because I was thinking about this just the other day. I mean, it just bothered me. I've been praying about this.
Yes, sir.
How
Wow.
somebody can just show up and just start shooting people, kill all these different people. But what I thought about was the people that voted to allow this person or people like him to have access to these weapons. Okay? I wonder, when their time comes to stand before God, how do you justify that?
Carl said something earlier, you know, that the politicians, these elected
Yeah.
officials are supposed to serve the people. They do. You have to question which group of people do they serve.
Yes.
They don't serve, and I think it was Carl that said it earlier. But anyway, you have to question which group of, they're serving the people, all right. It's just not the right group of people. It's not the people that matter. They're serving the people with the money. They're not serving the people with the purpose.
And if you watch the senator or the representative from Maine, whose hometown,
Now he's changed his
now
mind.
he's flipped.
Yeah.
Now he's flipped.
Yeah, now he has a
come back
different
and said, I'm
opinion.
not in agreement with this.
Yeah.
But, and I've said this before, when this has happened numerous times before, almost every time it happens, I've said this, that it won't make a difference to them till it happens in their hometown.
My Lord.
Okay?
My Lord.
Because as long as
Come on.
as long as the homicides are happening in our community, 153
Come on.
homicides to date, I think it is,
I
happening.
know
Probably
it.
The majority
Come
are
on.
happening on the east side of Truth. As long as that's happening, there's no incentive for anybody to come in and do anything about it. That's why you have K360. That's why you have concerned clergy. That's why you have the pastors in who are concerned. Why? Because we're the ones dealing with that on a daily basis.
And his concern, one of his concerns, the same person, one of his concerns is, I guess, with abortion, is that these are able-bodied humans that are being murdered that could be contributing to society 18, 19, 20 years from now. Well, what about the kids that are here, that whose lives are cut short, who could be contributing
Say it,
to
sister.
society
Yes,
5,
ma'am.
6, 7 years from now?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I just don't understand it. I can't seem to wrap my mind around it. It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm not sure that the people that are writing these policies or supporting these policies is making sense to them either.
I
Come
don't
on.
think it does.
Thank you.
Couldn't.
Because
Thank you.
If you say, and some of these groups say that they're dedicated Christians,
Mm-hmm.
how do you advocate some of this stuff?
Thank you.
If
Thank you.
Jesus is your Lord and Savior,
Yes, sir.
and I'm
Yes,
doing,
sir.
I'm doing a Bible study on proof that God loves you.
Come on.
And so
Yes, sir.
It's coming from 1 John. But I'm
Yeah.
dealing with this. But anyway, one of the things that happens is that how do you support that, justify that when you're sitting up there going against the very thing that you say. And as a pastor, how can you sit up there as a pastor and support that same type of thing, abortions and gun rights and discrimination? How do you support that? Okay, so there's some issues with mankind. Okay, let's face that reality. There's some issues with mankind, and these issues are going to get worse.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that my wife Wanda talks about is the business of big sin, little sin.
A sin is a sin is a sin is a sin.
So, I mean, when someone is very adamant about anti-abortion, but very approving of capital punishment, then there is something that does not quite fit. And the other part of that is what you started with when we were talking about faith, and that is none of us being perfect. And inasmuch as DeQuay and I repeat often, children learn more by example than they do by instruction. They're watching what we do. They're even listening to what we say. But then we're watching to see whether or not our behavior coincides with our pronouncements. And inasmuch as so much media are available to them, they're seeing what we do 24/7. And I don't know how close we are.
Yeah.
I want to give Pastor Shelton an opportunity to wrap us up in what is important to you, and you don't want us to get away without saying something about, and here it is, Pastor Thomas Shelton.
What's important to me above all things is human life.
Yes, sir.
I don't care whose life it is. Human life is important to me.
Yes, sir.
The quality of life.
Ooh.
Okay. We have dozens of people who are houseless, as my friend Pastor Elfendorf, I forgot how to pronounce it.
Yes, Esther Hosendorf.
Yeah, says the houseless people.
Wow.
That the lack of good food, fresh food in the community. These are all qualities of life.
Yes.
Issues. Okay. I was thinking as I was sitting in Santa Fe's meeting today, I was thinking that our communities ought to be like those communities in Lee Summit and Butte and Blue Springs.
Mm-hmm.
They ought to be the same way. We ought to have wide roads, beautiful houses, quality.
Pretty
Okay.
greenery.
Right.
Yeah.
We ought to have quality. But we're going to have to decide we want to do that.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have to decide that this is what we're going to do in order for that to happen.
And I appreciate your saying we're going to decide, because I don't know who said it, but the cliche is there's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind.
That's it.
And that's if we seriously make up our minds. There's nothing we cannot do. That's on us, please.
There was a sign that used to sit in the restroom at Kansas City PBS. Well, at the time it was KCPT.
Yes.
And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember what it said verbatim, but it says something to the effect of, unless someone cares a whole heck of a lot more than you do, it's not going to get done unless you do it.
That is so good. It just makes ultimate sense.
It does.
I think the question is, and this is a question for the audience and for the general public, is what are you willing to do? What are you willing to
Thank
do?
you very much.
Okay, too many folks are dependent on somebody else to do stuff.
Thank you.
So what are you willing to do?
And you are not imposing a volume, an amount. It can be a small thing as far as the physics of it, but it's a large thing in terms of the dedication of it.
Let me tell you something. That church that's on in a storefront
Yes, sir.
with the family church with 10 people in it, that church is just as important and
Praise God.
leadership.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Or some other mega
Any
church.
mega church.
Ooh.
Okay, because they're preaching the same gospel.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's quit saying that if I'm not important, if I'm not a big shot, I'm a nobody.
Right.
Okay, so my question to us, and this is why I challenge myself with, what are you willing to do? And so that's why I
Thank
get
you.
out and do the things that I do.
Wow.
Here's the thing: we're all somebody, but we're all nobody. Also, and I say this because I'm no better than you are. I may have different talents. You have different talents, but I'm no better than you are. And when we get caught up on the we are somebody,
That's right.
we tend to think we're better than certain other
Somebody
people.
else.
And so we have to come. It's a humble approach.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm somebody, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm nobody. But I'm supposed to be here because I have to play my part. I'm nobody that I'm more than one other person, but I'm still somebody, and I have a role to
And see,
play.
that's what the Bible teaches. That's exactly what the Bible teaches.
Our-
Is that we're all equal in God's eyes.
Praise God. Our Sunday school class was talking about love, and we were talking about the importance of love. And you can hang all the prophets and all the law on these two: love the Lord thy God and love thy neighbor as thyself. And my Sunday school class allowed me to repeat when I said to them my attitude towards agape love. And it might be someone who seemingly does not deserve it. And what I said was, I don't love you because I like you. I love you because I am like you. And I have to realize how much I am like someone whom I might consider to be less than, and then up pops the mirror.
Okay, now that's Sunday school. That's Sunday school lesson. Because you sitting up there, and you talking about we make a determination about the value of somebody. And I'm gonna do this
Because we're going to get cut off. We have 2 minutes left. And
Oh,
the
no.
show ends.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Because I'll
is
just,
that we make a judgment based on the outside. God judges us based on the inside.
come on. Thank you so very much. Pastor Thomas Shelton, Lighthouse. Now, is it Lighthouse Missionary Baptist Church?
You know how we do.
Yes, sir. But man, we just need. Can you give us just an hour and a half more? That's all. You got to come back, and I thank you so very, very much.
Thank you so much.
God bless
I'm
you.
More than willing to come back anytime.
Thank you,
When conversation is good. So,
Sister DeQuay.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on your Stutes for Boots Wave Your Grades program. We come to you live every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m. right here at the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center in Kansas City, Missouri. I am your announcer, DeQuay Wilson. If he can squeeze it in, here's our host, Carl Boyd, with Carl's commentary on academic patriotism and his daily message for students in honor of our veterans from his book, Morning Messages.
I'll do the commentary next week. To students across the USA, your Stutes for Boots message for this day. Headlines show them fighting in foreign lands. Heartlines show them visiting schools at home. My name is Carl Boyd. Thank you so very much, Pastor Thomas Shelton, our announcer, producer, DeQuay Wilson, Brother Lewis.